guys, Logan here. Welcome to another episode of LBFT. This is episode 13 of LBFT Season 3. For this episode, I'm going to be talking about the college football playoff semifinal games that took place last Saturday. The first one being the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl between number 1 LSU Tigers and number 4 Oklahoma Sooners. And then the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl between number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes and number 3 Clemson Tigers. I'll start off with the Peach Bowl. The LSU Tigers completely dominated Oklahoma 63-28. Completely destroyed OU's defense, turning them into absolute dust, pieces of dust, if you will. It was an absolute slaughterhouse. If you're an Oklahoma Sooners fan, you have to be disappointed with how your team came out. Especially with that defense. It looked absolutely, utterly horrendous. 63 points. 63 points. I didn't think that Oklahoma would win this game. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I know for 1 second that Oklahoma would upset LSU. That's not what I'm saying. But I will tell you this. Even though I know that Oklahoma would not win this game, or I know that Oklahoma would lose this game, in no way did I ever think that their defense would be this bad. This utterly bad. You want to talk about, 8 total touchdowns against the Heismen Trophy winning quarterback in Joe Burrow. Let me tell you something right now. Joe Burrow broke 4 or 5 of the 10 records that LSU broke in this entire game. 10 college football playoff records broken by LSU and Joe Burrow. Two of those records, if I'm not mistaken, were by a wide receiver in Justin Jefferson, one of the wide receivers for the LSU Tigers. He was absolutely incredible. 14 receptions, 227 receiving yards, 4 touchdown catches, which is tied for most in a SEC Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. And it's one of the records that LSU broke. And Joe Burrow again. 29 of 39, 493 passing yards, 7 touchdowns. 8 total touchdowns, 7 in passing, and 1 in rushing, and 0 interceptions. I'm not going to take any credit away from Joe Burrow. He's absolutely fantastic. He's one of the best quarterbacks in college football this season. Maybe the best, if you want to look at it. He won the Heismen Trophy, and rightfully so. He absolutely deserves it with the season that he has had this year. The numbers and the wins and the schedule that he has put up is something that just could barely be measured, if not never be measured at all. He's putting up what I would argue to be the greatest college football season I have ever seen. In all of my 6 to 7 years of watching college football, I have never seen a quarterback season quite like Joe Burrow's. None. I've never seen a quarterback putting up a season like this, like Joe Burrow has. Not like this season, not like this quarterback. No. All the last 9 or 10 quarterbacks that won the Heisman Trophy, I would say 9. None of them have put up a season quite like Joe Burrow has. Now, I wouldn't even argue with Jameis Winston in 2013. He didn't have Joe Burrow's season. Not even Jameis Winston had a season quite like Joe Burrow's this year. 6-0 against teams ranked in the top 10. Not a single game in which he completed less than 71% of his passes. And, hold on. I'm sorry, guys. Not passing for less. Hold on. Okay, so the less. How do I put this bit? I'm sorry. I'm trying to word it better. The less passing yards that he made in the 2019 season for the LSU Tigers was 278. 278. Those were the least passing yards that he put up, and that was in the season opening game for Joe Burrow. He was 23 of 27, completed 85.2% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and guess who he beaten? Guess who he beaten in that season opening game? Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern. That, just to give you some perspective, that was the last time that he passed for less than 300 yards. There's not a single game outside of the season opening game against Georgia Southern where Joe Burrow had not passed for less than 300 yards in a single game this season. That's great. I'm not taking any credit away from that. But let's be clear. Oklahoma's defense was horrific last Saturday. It was horrific. Not as bad as it was last year in terms of passing defense, but they were still horrendous. 63 points. All those touchdowns that they gave up were by Joe Burrow. 7 in passing, 1 in rushing. That's just absolutely bad. I just can't. Ugh. Whew. I just don't know what to say. It was an absolute. By halftime, when it was 49-14, if I remember correctly, I was outside the house, or I was finding something to eat, pick it up, and then bring it on home to eat at home. And then by the time that I arrived home, it was like 56-14 or 21. I'm not exactly remember, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that it was a lopsided game before the game even went to halftime. It was over before the game ever even went to halftime. That's how bad Oklahoma's defense is. Not as bad as last year, but still bad. Alex Grinch, I'm not entirely know how I feel about Alex Grinch, because this is the first season in which I see him as a defensive coordinator. So all I will say about Alex Grinch is this. He did improve certain areas of Oklahoma's defense. in terms of man-to-man coverage, I would probably say that he did improve Oklahoma's defense on that in terms of man-to-man coverage, putting a few defensive linemen or other players on the defense be on the line of scrimmage and stop the players before allowing a first down to be made by an opposing offense. At least he improved the defense on that. Outside of that, he hasn't figured out LSU's offense, which I will say LSU was far too great for Oklahoma's defense to deal with, and that's one of the reasons why they gave up 63 points. I get all that. But what I'm saying to you is, Alex Grinch, to me, hasn't proved yet that he's a good defensive coordinator. There are certain glimpses of, okay, I see what you're doing. Okay, that's a good defensive play. That's a good defensive call. Okay, I got it. But outside of that, he hasn't fully proven that he's a good defensive coordinator. I mean, he was a defensive coordinator back at Washington State, the Wazoo, as they call it nowadays, coached by Mike Leach, who can't even win a single division in a Pac-12. I think he's coaching in a Pac-12 North division. Yeah, that's right, Pac-12 North. He can't even win that division. He has never even won that division yet. And he's been there for a few years now, with no division wins whatsoever. But that's neither here nor there. My point to you is, OU's defense couldn't stop LSU's offense. LSU's offense was too great to be handled. You can't stop this offense. You can only hope to contain them. And as far as I'm concerned, OU's defense could not even contain Joe Burrow in that LSU offense. They couldn't even do that. And as a result, the LSU Tigers are one of the two teams that will be playing in the national championship game in New Orleans for the 2020 College Football Playoff National Championship. So this was a big game for LSU. This was a big game for Joe Burrow. Chris Curry with 16 carries and 90 rushing yards. Justin Jefferson, this was also a great game for him. 14 receptions, 227 receiving yards, 4 touchdown catches. The brother was an absolute monster. Today, Moss wasn't that bad either. He had 4 receptions with nearly 100 yards receiving and 1 touchdown catch. And this dude, what's his name? Terrence Marshall Jr. He also wasn't that bad either. 6 receptions, 80 receiving yards, 2 touchdown catches. I just don't know what else to say other than Joe Burrow and LSU played a great game, but Jalen Hurts and Oklahoma they played a bad game. Now I'll give Jalen Hurts some. I don't know if you would say pushback, or no, I wouldn't say pushback. I'll be fair to Jalen Hurts because it's not his fault that Oklahoma gave up 63 points. That would be that defense. Jalen Hurts not playing on the defense. He's playing on the offense. So I'll give him a pass. But when you are one of the most prolific passing offenses in the country, only behind teams like LSU, for example, and you average at least I would say maybe somewhere between 30 and 40 points in a game, points a game, and you only scored 28 points against a defense that is not necessarily great, but still improving these past few games of the season, then you got problems. And I know it's not just Jalen Hurts. It's also the running game and the receiving core, as well as the coaching by Lincoln Riley. This was not a good game for Lincoln Riley. This is probably the worst game that he has ever played in. The worst game he's ever coached in, rather. He's not a player, he's a coach. I don't even know why I said he's a coach, but that's neither. But I digress. This is the worst game that he has coached in as the Oklahoma head coach, as the head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners. Out of all the games in which he lost as the head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners, this is by far the worst he's ever been. Period. I can't think of another game that is just as bad or worse than this game. He has been out-coached, he's basically been out-coached by Ed Orgeron, who's a damn good coach, by the way. It's just that simple. I mean, OU has got a lot of problems to solve coming into next season. They got a lot of problems to solve. Because if they don't solve problems, most of which on the defensive side of the ball, then I don't see them winning one of two national semifinals for the college football playoff. You cannot win a college football playoff semifinal game without a defense. You can't. It doesn't work that way. You have to be well-balanced. You have to be dominant on both sides of the ball. There are two teams that have done that last Saturday, and I'll get into them in a little bit. But you have to be at least balanced on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. You have to at least have a fairly decent defense that can make big stops on certain plays at certain points of the game. And Oklahoma couldn't even do that. Name me one play in which Oklahoma's defense made a big stop that caused LSU to make a punt. Give me one play. I'll wait. Because I'm here to tell you there's none. There can't be. There is none. That's another example for how bad OU's defense is this year. Not as bad as last year in terms of passing defense, but they're still bad nonetheless. That's the bottom line. Jalen Hurts, I feel bad for this brother because this is his last game wearing a Sooners uniform and also playing in college football. Because this is his senior season and he's not coming. He's already made it very clear that he's not coming back after this season. He's declaring for the NFL draft, or at least I think he is. He might not have been, but anyway, I feel bad for Jalen Hurts. This is not the way that he wanted his career to end with in college football, but it is, and as a result, I feel he's not gonna come back after this season, and I really feel bad for Jalen Hurts because I want him and Oklahoma to succeed when everybody doubted them, and I'll admit, I was one of those people that doubted that highly doubts Oklahoma would win. I doubt that they would win this game. But in no way did I ever think that they would give up 63 damn points. I just couldn't believe it. So, those are my thoughts on the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Moving on to the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Between number 2, Ohio State, versus number 3, Clemson. The Clemson Tigers won this game, or the Tigers won this game by 6 points against the Buckeyes. By 6 points. Yeah, I already said that. 29-23, the final score of the game, making this Clemson's 4th straight win against Ohio State in their entire series, 4-0. Not losing a single game in their entire rivalry series, so to speak, against Ohio State. Let's get started. So, this was, at least, not a lopsided game, like the Peach Bowl was. So thank God for that. Thank God this was not a lopsided game. This might be one of the best semifinal games I've ever watched. Arguably the best. I find it, how do I put this? This was a more exciting and watchable game than the Georgia-Oklahoma game a few years ago. I'm not lying. That is exactly how I feel. This was a more closer game and more exciting game than the Georgia-Oklahoma game a few years ago in one of the national semifinal games. Because you got two teams that are as equally balanced and dominant on both sides of the ball. Offense and defense. The Clemson Tigers, who have the number 1 scoring and passing defense in the country, basically having the number 1 total defense. And then you have Ohio State, who has the number 1 rushing defense, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, though. They might not have the number 1 rushing defense in the country, but basically, they have one of the most prolific they have one of the best defenses in the country, basically. And I will say this. I mean, watching this game, the first quarter was kind of lopsided. 16-0, Ohio State. Basically shut Clemson out. Shutting them out for the first time. And I don't even remember. Was it the Oklahoma? Or no, not the Oklahoma. North Carolina game? In which Clemson barely won that game after stopping a 2-point conversion, making it 21-20, avoiding an upset. Yeah. This was a really great game to watch, I will say. At least Clemson came back. After that first quarter ended, the game, Ohio State was up 16-0. And then after the first quarter, the rest of the game was all Clemson. Ohio State scored on Clemson 16-0 in the first quarter. The first quarter was mainly Ohio State. But the rest of the game after that, it was all Clemson. Clemson came back outscoring Ohio State 29-7. 29-7. in the next 3 quarters of the game. Basically, the rest of the game after the first quarter. Trevor Lawrence was absolutely special. He was absolutely fantastic. His passing numbers might not be that striking by his own standards, but in terms of his overall game, his total game, on not just passing but also in rushing, running with the football, he was absolutely spectacular. I was highly impressed with what Trevor Lawrence did against Ohio State. I mean, 259 passing yards and 107 in rushing. That's pretty impressive. Really impressive. And so yeah, that makes it 366 total yards that he put up, including that 67-yard touchdown run that he made in the second quarter, if I remember correctly. I think it was in the second quarter, but anyway, yeah, this was Trevor Lawrence's game, almost all game. I mean, this was the night for Trevor Lawrence. He put up an absolute show against an elite Ohio State defense. Which, let me say this, Ohio State was really impressive. Their defense, lights out. Great defense. And their offense is not bad either. You got these brothers, Justin Fields. He was impressive. I was really impressed with what I saw from Justin Fields, 30 to 46. So 46 is officially the most passing attempts he has made in a single game this season, which is more than 31 that he made in the Big Ten Championship against Wisconsin. But yeah, 30 of 46, 320 passing yards, averaged 7 yards per pass attempt. And this dude, J.K. Dobbins, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. This brother is a monster. 18 carries, 174 rushing yards, averaged 9.7 yards per carry, 1 touchdown rush. He was fantastic. That one touchdown that he made, hold on. That one touchdown, it was that one play in the first quarter where J.K. Dobbins ran for 68 yards to score a touchdown. That was the most rushing play that Clemson allowed since Dalvin Cook in 2016. J.K. Dobbins' 68-yard total rush was the longest rushing rush that Clemson has ever allowed since Florida State's Dalvin Cook in 2016, which I'm not mistaken was 60-something. I don't know exactly which, but I know it's somewhere in the 60 yards. So yeah, J.K. Dobbins, he was absolutely impressive. Just an absolute beast. He could not be stopped. He was fast. He was agile. He was very elusive, very quick, fast, strong, and all the other words that you could describe. He was incredible. One of the best running backs in the country, and he declares for the NFL draft, and he should. he absolutely deserves to declare for the NFL draft. He's a really good running back. He might not be. I don't know if he'll be a first round pick or a second round pick. Okay, I know he's going to be a second round pick. That I know for sure. But I'm not sure if he'll be a first round pick. That's kind of a little bit of a dicey thing for me. I mean, if I were a GM for a particular NFL team, I wouldn't be sure if J.K. Dobbins would be a... I'm not sure if I would pick him in the first round of the NFL draft. I don't know if I would. Second round, yes. But first round, not sure about that. But that's just me. That's just my own personal opinion. I didn't even get to all the other Clemson players besides Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Travis Etienne, he was non-existent in the running game, but he was very impressive in the receiving game. I mean, he only had 3 receptions with 98 receiving yards, almost 100, with 2 touchdown catches from Trevor Lawrence. He was the best wide receiver in that game for Clemson. And he's not even a receiver. He's a running back. And he already had more, and he has more receiving yards than all the receivers for Clemson. Justin Ross, Amari Rodgers, T. Higgins, and yeah, I mean, both T. Higgins and Justin Ross were both hobbled in this game. They went down with a couple of injuries, but then they came back and they kept on playing until the end of the game, which I highly respect. That I highly respect those guys for continuing to play this game, even though they were being hobbled. They still continue to play, which I have a lot of respect for that. And I will say this: Clemson's defense, oh my God, what a defense! Especially within the last 3 quarters of the game, the last 45 minutes, if you will. This Clemson defense is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I was even more impressed with them than I was even last season, which is really saying a lot because Clemson's defense last year was highly impressive, and this defense is even better at certain areas. It's just that insane. I mean, they picked off Justin Fields twice in this game, which, by the way, going into this game, Justin Fields had 40 touchdowns and 1 interception. 1 interception throughout within an entire year up until this game, where he only got picked off twice. He had more interceptions in this game than he has in the entire regular season, and that even includes the Big Ten title game. The entire 13-game season, he had more interceptions in this game than he has in a 13-game season, including the Big Ten title game, which is 1 interception within the first 13 games, 2 in this semifinal game against Clemson. And one of those interceptions ended up being a game-winning interception for Clemson within the last 40 seconds of the game, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I mean, Justin Fields, he might not, I mean, statistically speaking, might not have had a great game, but he sure showed that he can lead his team to win when it really counts. Although he didn't win, he has shown that he can lead his team to win when it counts, proving that he can go through adversity to be a champion, even though he's not going to the national championship, he still proved he has shown examples that he can get things done when it counts, even with a loss. So, and by the way, this is his first loss how do I put this? This is his first loss as a starter for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Going into this game, this is another interesting fact that I found about both Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. This is that both of those guys have a combined starter record of 37-0. Trevor Lawrence 24, Justin Fields 13, making it 37-0 going into this game, which is very impressive. But then, of course, Trevor Lawrence came in and saved the day for Clemson with that game-winning touchdown pass, if you will, for Clemson. Even though, if you watch the game, it might not seem like that, considering that Clemson won the game by an interception, by intercepting Justin Fields' ball. So yeah, it's just that. I mean, it was an absolute blast to watch. It's one of the, like I said earlier, it's one of the best games that I've ever watched within the college football playoff era. It might even be the best game I've ever. It might even be the best national semifinal game I've ever watched. Even better than Georgia, Oklahoma a few years ago. Which is really saying a lot because that was a high-scoring game. But to me, it comes down to both teams being as balanced and as dominant on both sides of the ball as they have been throughout the season. It comes down to who will have the ball last. And Clemson ended up being the team that had the ball last and won the game in a close thriller by 6 points. And like everybody was excited was excited to watch this game, was excited for this game, and was expecting it to be a really good game, and it did not disappoint. Thank God we didn't have a second lopsided game this year. It was just that great. And Clemson remains undefeated, winning their 29 straight games, and then going to their second consecutive consecutive national championship appearance after beating Ohio State 29-23. It's just absolutely great. One of the best games I've ever watched this season of college football, for me. It was just absolutely great. And now we have the LSU Tigers and the Clemson Tigers play against each other in the 2020 College Football Playoff National Championship in New Orleans, mind you. New Orleans is not that far from Baton Rouge, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's in the same state, Louisiana, as Baton Rouge. I mean, and it's going to be... It might even be a bigger test for both teams. More so Clemson, because this game is being played at New Orleans, which is a hostile environment for Clemson, and it's because LSU is a team in the state of Louisiana. So that gives them, so this will be looked at as a home field advantage for LSU, and probably why LSU is picked as the odds-on favorite to beat Clemson. But yeah, it's going to be. It might even be a much more closer and exciting game than the Clemson Ohio State game. which again is really saying a lot because both teams were just as balanced and as dominant on both sides of the ball as any team in this season in college football, as there is in college football this season. But I do believe that this will be a high-scoring game by both teams. You know, one team having the number one passing offense in the country going up against the number one passing defense in the country. That's going to be an exciting matchup to watch. I actually think that this will be a 30-plus scoring game for both teams. I'm not going to lie. I expect this game to have 30 points scored by both teams. Now, I'm not going to give my prediction for who I think will win this game just yet. But I will do an episode, not the next episode, but the one after the next episode, where I'll give my prediction for who I think will win the LSU Clemson National Championship game. Or, I don't know if... Maybe I'm not going to do an LBFT episode. Maybe I'll do a Battle 5 video on that. I think that's probably better. I think that's probably more easier to do than doing an LBFT episode. Although, there's not much to do for doing an LBFT episode. There's a lot less to do with an LBFT episode than there is with a Battle 5 video. But I digress. So anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl between Clemson and Ohio State. And those are my overall thoughts on both of the college football playoff semifinal games played by, two semifinal games, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. LSU dominated Oklahoma 63-28, and Clemson narrowly beating Ohio State 29-23. Really great game. I love it.
Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it that like button to click, and if you'd like to see future videos from me, make sure to press up there to subscribe, and don't forget to turn on that bell icon so that you'll get notified about my latest videos. Have a great day, and as always, fight the good fight.